good.
All right, we're all set.
I'm not ready now. Hang on a second.
Okay.
All right, okay. All right. Please take notice that action will be taken on the following items at the regular council meeting on Tuesday, September 12th, 2023, in the council chamber, Sparta Township Municipal Building, 65 Main Street, Sparta, New Jersey. The regular meeting is opened at 7:02, assuming the clock is correct. All council meetings are now live streamed and can be viewed at the following link, https://@SpartaTWP/streams. Adequate notice of this meeting was provided to the public and to the press on June 14, 2023 by delivering to the press and posting on the township website a copy of this notice. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Blumetti.
Here.
Councilman Hertzberg.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Clark.
Here.
Councilwoman Quinn.
Here.
Mayor Chiarello.
I am here. Will everybody please join me as we salute our flag? I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dan, can I ask that we do a moment of silence for 9/11? Since we didn't get
Yes,
to
and
our
thank you for mentioning that.
ceremony.
So please join us. Thank you. Was this, there was a ceremony from the Elks yesterday, right? But nothing here? That's correct, right?
It was on Saturday or Sunday.
There was a ceremony last night.
The Elks, right?
Last night, yes.
Okay. We have two proclamations today. The first one I will read is for Prostate Cancer Awareness Month. Whereas this year, approximately 288,300 men will be diagnosed with prostate cancer in the United States alone, one man every 2 minutes, and roughly 34,700 will die this year from the disease, about 3,500 more than 2020, which is one man every 15 minutes. And whereas in New Jersey, an estimated 9,460 new cases of prostate cancer will be diagnosed, and an estimated 730 deaths will occur in 2023. And men with relatives, father, brother, and son with a history of prostate cancer are twice as likely to develop the disease. And whereas prostate cancer is the most commonly diagnosed cancer in American men and the third world, the third leading cause of cancer deaths behind lung and colon cancer. And whereas 1 in 8 men are diagnosed with prostate cancer in their lifetime, and 1 in 6 African American men will develop prostate cancer in their lifetime. Overall, African American men are 1.7 times more likely to be diagnosed with and 2.1 times more likely to die from prostate cancer than white men. And veterans who are exposed to herbicides like Agent Orange are at increased risk for developing prostate cancer and are more likely to have an aggressive form of the disease. And whereas education regarding prostate cancer and early detection strategies is critical to saving lives, preserving and protecting our families, as well as the economic and social burden of prostate cancer is huge on families, and if caught early, prostate cancer has a 5-year survival rate of nearly 100%. However, for late-stage prostate cancer, the survival rate is 31%. And whereas in 2023, there will be more men diagnosed in the later stages of prostate cancer because of delayed screenings and treatment due to COVID-19. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Township Council of the Township of Sparta does hereby proclaim September as Prostate Cancer Awareness Month and encourages all community residents to take part in activities and observances to increase awareness of prostate cancer. Now, I can say for the record that I've had a couple members of my family who've been afflicted by this, and it's not a pleasant experience. We were encouraged to issue this proclamation by Joseph Musamesi from the Zero Prostate Cancer Association organization. Joseph is not able to attend, so I'll try to make sure that Joseph receives this. Okay, thank you. We have a second proclamation. You might have seen the teal ribbons on town reminding us of ovarian cancer for the Paint the Town Teal for Ovarian Cancer campaign. Whereas ovarian cancer claims more women's lives than any other gynecological cancer, and whereas the American Cancer Society estimates that in 2023, over 19,710 women will be diagnosed with ovarian cancer, and approximately 13,270 will perish from this disease. And whereas ovarian cancer is difficult to detect, and women are often not diagnosed until the disease has reached an advanced stage. And whereas an early diagnosis of ovarian cancer can increase the survival rate to as high as 93%, and certain factors can reduce the risk of ovarian cancer and play an important role in its prevention and awareness, and early detection of ovarian cancer is the best means of protecting women's lives from this disease. And whereas awareness and early detection of ovarian cancer is the best means of protecting women's lives from this disease. And whereas the Township Council further wishes to recognize and honor the thousands of women who battle vigilantly against the disease and to further encourage them in their daily struggles. Now therefore be it resolved that the Township Council of the Township of Sparta hereby proclaims September 23rd as Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month in Sparta Township. And the council calls upon all citizens, agencies, organizations, healthcare providers, and research institutions to raise ovarian cancer awareness and continue helping Americans live longer, healthier lives. And here to receive this is Andrew Lopez. So can you join me here? And if you could tell us why you're here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Can I ask a question before we get into the next piece?
Sure.
Do we have plans to light up the building with these colors? Do we know?
Already lit.
We do? Good, okay.
Yep. Yep, and you'll see the ribbons around town as well if you've noticed, yeah. All right, now may I have a motion to approve the April 2027 executive minutes as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve those minutes from April 27th as presented.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? All right, the minutes are approved. May I have a motion to approve the May 9, 2023 regular meeting minutes as presented?
I move we approve the regular meeting minutes of May 9th, 2023 as presented.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion or comments? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? All right, those minutes are approved. Will the deputy manager please present the manager's report this evening?
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and Sparta residents. I'm happy to start the manager's report with some fireman appointments. At the recommendation of Chief Chris Angelucci, I would like to appoint the following members to the Sparta Township Fire Department: Johnny Moran, Philip J. Skowinski, and Emery Dury. Chief Angelucci is confident that the new members will fulfill and complete the New Jersey State mandated Firefighter 1 requirements and become a great asset to the fire department. In the Public Works Department, since the last council meeting, the department has renovated several stormwater catch basins on various township roadways, including basins in the Llewellyn Farms development. The streets of Timberline Drive, Bromley Court, Stratton Court, and Coventry Lane are scheduled for curbing improvements and roadway paving. Work is anticipated to commence in the following weeks and be completed late October, weather permitting. Last Friday, the lamppost banners were changed to autumn leaves and shop local for the fall season. Work has begun on replacing the old stairs and railings to the pedestrian bridge between Ungerman parking lot and the Sparta Library. This bridge is currently closed and is anticipated to reopen next week, weather permitting. On to the Parks and Recreation Department. During August, all summer programs were completed, including operations at the senior pool and all of our summer camps. The Recreation Department has been busy finalizing and registering people for fall programs, with most programs beginning this week and filling up quickly. Fall sports registrations have increased over the last several years. Both flag and tackle football programs have increased again, and trend we have seen in the last 3 years, as well as fall baseball and softball, also increasing. We are entering into our second cross-country season as well. We have 6 women's softball teams, 1 women's soccer team, 2 men's soccer teams, and 1 fall cricket team. The Circle of Friends preschool is filled to capacity and begins tomorrow. Sparta seniors have a full fall schedule, as well as preparing for the Fall Senior Olympics, which takes place on Wednesday, September 20th in Wayne, New Jersey. With the increase of children participating in fall sports programs, the park staff are continually maintaining and painting all fields, including the additional fields at White Lake facility, as well as the additional North Village Park complex. Our park staff is doing a great job keeping up with these demands. In our utilities department, as a reminder, water bills are due by September 15th. Tax department, annual tax sale of 2022 and prior year delinquent taxes and other municipal charges is scheduled for October 11th, starting at 9 a.m. through an online auction. For a listing of all parcels, delinquencies, and costs, along with bidding instructions, please visit sparta.newjerseytaxsale.com. This information is posted in Town Hall as well as the Township's website. Our construction department. As of August 31st, the department has issued 1,284 permits and performed a total of 3,725 inspections, including building, electrical, plumbing, and fire. This department continues to accept the administrative processing of lead inspections upon request. The construction official has been addressing delinquent permits and inspections and have sent a total of 64 open permit letters to residents. Planning Department is in search of volunteer members for the Master Plan Subcommittee, with a window for submission between September 13th through the 22nd. The application link can be found on the Sparta Township website. Sparta Library, this year's summer reading program, Sparta Library Summer Camp, was a great success, and Dave Costa commends his staff for doing a tremendous job planning and executing this year's events. They had 326 total participants registered for the reading program on Beanstack. They have experienced another year of high attendance with fewer programs, which resulted in better attendance per program. Please visit spartanj.org and spartalibrary.com for additional information. I'm going to ask Chief McCarrick to read his portion of the report. This concludes my report. Thank you, Mayor, Council, and Sparta residents.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Manager Zepp. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. I'd like to start off by recognizing, yes, last night the Elks did have a 9/11 ceremony, a nice ceremony on the boardwalk that the police department participated with an honor guard to remember the ones that we lost. Recent promotions with the Sparta Police Department. On August 31st, the police department celebrated the promotions of 2 officers, Lieutenant Thomas Snyder, who's here with us tonight, and Sergeant Dan Elig. These promotions are vital to the organization within our department to best serve the needs of our community. And I'm confident that Lieutenant Snyder and Sergeant Ely will continue to uphold the mission and the vision of our department to better serve our community with excellence. We also recognize Lieutenant Tom Snyder, Corporal Kurt Morris, Corporal Scott Elig, Detective Chris Favaro, Officer Eric Finley, and Officer Chris Botta for their outstanding efforts in responding in July to a barricaded subject who was reported to have a samurai sword suffering from a psychotic episode. Ultimately, the subject surrendered the sword prior to the officer speaking to him for over 3 hours and ultimately agreed to be transported to mental health. There were no injuries and there was absolutely no force used during this incident. And I bring this up is because this happens from time to time, and our officers do an outstanding job with knowing the individuals that we're dealing with and how to deal with them. And that goes back to the training I've talked about in other council meetings. So each officer was provided with a meritorious award and a citation bar to wear on their Class A uniform. I want to bring up back to school again, just because it's another reminder of the traffic, both pedestrian and vehicular, during school hours, mostly when there's school drop-off and pickup. We are aware of some issues out there, and our traffic bureau is addressing those issues and working with the schools to help a better flow of traffic. But additionally, there's an increase in these both vehicular and pedestrian traffic after schools, during after-school activities, sports, and even the parks. The parks are packed. As Deputy Manager Zepp said, there's a lot going on. Our officers are out patrolling. Sometimes you'll see them on a bicycle, they'll be on foot, or just roaming through with a patrol car. So please obey the speeds and obey the pedestrian laws. Last, we have Sussex County Day that the police department will be participating in for the third year. This is on Sunday, September 17th, 12 to 4 at the Sussex County Fairgrounds. Our officers will be out there with dispatchers, so you come out, meet them. We have a lot of events set up out there, such as a dunk tank. You get a chance to dunk a cop. It's a big hit with the kids. Our booth is always very, very popular. It's a great day, so hopefully we see some people out there. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Deputy Manager. I have to say, there was a Sussex County Day where I participated as, was in my first year on the council, and they throw the pie at the elected official. And so for a whole hour, I got doused with pies in the face, and it was one of the most unpleasant experiences I've ever had in my life, covered with bees. So I salute you. Water is much more pleasant than
Well, since you're volunteering, bring
bring it
You
on.
can bring your bathing suit, and the water will be warm.
I'm there for
That.
better than the pie. May I have a motion to approve the manager's report as presented?
So moved.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstain? All right, the manager's reports and chief's reports are approved. At this time, I'd like to open to the public for any items that are not on the agenda. And please state your name and address for the record.
Hey, thanks, Mayor. Mike Devine, Oak Parkway. Just two fast ones. One is, are zoning minutes posted anywhere? I've not been able to find them. I think you may have talked about it previously. I just don't remember.
I do recognize that we have a lag in posting our minutes. We have a new system we've adopted a new ERP system this year.
Okay.
It's now more incumbent on the department, people that work in the department to maintain their own content. A lot of times that's not the most, not goes to the top of their list, but it certainly is, I recognize it is important. And, we have addressed, we're trying to address that.
Okay,
We have
thanks.
recognized that there's a problem, and
Yeah,
but I apologize for that information not being
That's
readily available.
understandable. Are you going to address at all the progress towards hiring a manager?
I guess we could at this point. We have made an offer to somebody, and we're at the point of, I guess you can call it negotiation, and contract has not been signed, but we have extended an offer.
Okay.
And so I expect that we will have a new manager. It might not be at the next meeting, but maybe within a month or a month and a half, it seems up the timeline. The problem that we have is, as you're aware, that our council only works twice a month. And so there's only so much progress you can make when you're only working 2 evenings a month. So it's unfortunately, it's a slow slog, but we are at a point where we have extended an offer to someone.
Okay. Last, I had a comment on a resolution. I can't stick around. Can I make that comment now?
Sure.
I think it's 9, 7, or 8, the one about the public comment period. I understand you need to do it. We tried it a long time ago. Just two things to be aware of. One is, I think 3 minutes is kind of short, especially if the council is interacting. I mean, in principle, that I could say 2 words and somebody could start talking to me. 3 minutes could be used up and I haven't said anything. And I obviously don't just mean me. The other point is, when we did it, I think we made 5 minutes, I don't remember, but we didn't give much thought as to how to actually implement it. So unless you got somebody with a stop clock, which I don't think you want to do, you're gonna end up with people saying, I wasn't 5 minutes, that last guy had 8 minutes, just very practical. Could be, it's an understandable thing, I don't blame you for doing it, but it's not all that easy to manage.
We will have a visual indicator, at least that's the plan anyway.
Good.
So you're right, there has to be, otherwise it's honor system or whatever, it doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
The other, to some of your other points, in other towns that I'm aware of, 3 minutes is common. I think 3 minutes is what they employ at the Board of Ed. And nothing that we do is carved in stone, so if we find 3 minutes is not working, or we haven't yet discussed it yet, so we might visit that going in point. The other thing I would also comment on, just for myself, is that the public comment period is really meant for the public to provide their input into future legislation that we're discussing. It's morphed into a question and answer period, a press conference in some cases. That's really not what the public, and correct me if I'm wrong, Attorney Ryan, that's really not the point of a public comment period. It's not a question and answer session, so to say. So I think, although we've been used to that, being here till midnight every night or almost every night when we meet does necessitate some changes, in my opinion.
Okay, understand, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else from the public? Okay. Seeing none, will the Deputy Mayor please help us pay our bills and introduce the expenditures for September 12th?
I make a motion that we approve the bill list totals by fund dated September 12th, 2023, and the grand total amount of $4,287,021.90.
Thank you. May I have a second for that?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on the bill list? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the bill list, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? All right, the bill list is approved. We have 2 ordinances to be introduced. It is, at this point, the introduction, there's comments are kind of put on hold until the introduction is, until it is heard. But in any case, will the clerk please read the title of ordinance 23-16?
The Township of Sparta amending Chapter 11-2 Retail Food Establishment Code of the Revised General Ordinance of the Township of Sparta.
Thank you. May I have a motion to introduce ordinance 2016 as read?
So moved.
Thank you. May I have a second? Thank you. Any comments at this time on just dealing with the introduction of the ordinance, not the policy itself?
Well, I have a question.
Okay.
I know we're introducing the ordinance tonight, but for example, I have many changes based on the last conversation that we had that I don't see in here.
I thought we had we sent out a red line copy. Did you get, did we, was it a
I
red line
have-
copy?
So I did not get a red line copy. I just got a copy. And I know one of the things that I had specifically expressed was that, in my opinion, we didn't have, it was about what to govern, right? And I know one of the things that we started talking about was the lack of resources that we have to be able to manage this, the lack of a process. And do we really want to get involved with managing things outside of just food trucks on township-owned property, parks, and playgrounds?
Who did the red lines?
I don't know, but I don't have a red line. I had to make my own red line
Come
off
from you?
of what we got.
Might-
So I did not, and I did not receive any other opportunity to send back feedback. So I have all my feedback tonight. What I don't want to do is introduce something and then in the hearing, know that there's all these things
I completely,
that need to be changed, and then it just extends it again, but
no, I completely get that. I think that's fair. So, do you want to discuss propose some changes at this point? And if worst case scenario, or if need be, we reintroduce it again with changes?
unless you just want to assemble all the changes, I mean, I don't care how we want to do it, but I don't think it's a productive use of our time
I
to
agree.
introduce something that we know is gonna,
Yeah, I mean, I skimmed through it and I didn't notice the part where we exempt single event food trucks. I didn't see it in there, but doesn't mean I didn't miss it. I was just gonna ask.
You know, I did not send out the red
well,
line
it's not in
copy.
there because I have that as part of the things
Yeah,
that
I didn't see it
proposed.
either.
All right, that's my fault for not
So,
sending out the red line.
First,
copy.
Well, I don't think it matters. I think we're gonna.
okay, so we're just gonna hold off on it and then send our comments in, is that what we're doing?
I think there is an exemption for the
I could have sworn I saw the exemption
letter
in there.
C under 11-10.5, mobile food vendor locations.
10.5.
Yeah, 10.5, number C.
C does say it's only applicable if there's 2 or more. I think that's where it
Yep.
fits in maybe.
But then before it, it says that if you are having one, you have to get a license. So then it's a conflict. It's a
See,
conflict
I
statement.
did read that and I saw that, but in the beginning it says,
You're talking about you're talking about 11-4A6? Because that was also changed to make sure that there's 2 or more. We changed them both at the same time so they can stay
I
consistent.
mean, I think the issue that they're identifying, if I'm correct, if you look at section 11-103A, it's, and then AI, it says for events open to the public, a license is required, right? So you see that. And then if you move to section 11-10.5C, parked on public property for a public event on a specific date, township license is required if there shall be 2 or more mobile food vendors at the event. So if you read that, what a reasonable person could say is if there's only one, then you would not need a license because 1 is less than 2. But I think that's taken care of in the provision that says except as may otherwise be provided. And so with that language, I think that what that means, my understanding of what people want is that sometimes in a pinch, someone fails to show up at an event that's on public property, and then they have to just call in a food vendor at the last minute. And so they didn't want to have that food vendor have to get a license in a pinch. And that was my understanding from our last discussion of why we needed to amend this. And I think that's what 11-10.5C does.
That's exactly what we did say, Neil, and with that said, if we go back to 11-10.3, the second paragraph in A, it says in there that all applications must be 10 days prior to the date. So that would then negate the ability for someone to be able to quickly call a food truck and have them fill in for someone. You know
What
what
if
I'm
there's
saying?
one?
I don't think
right?
I don't think the verbiage is clear, that's all. I just think we need to just clear it up.
I mean, I understand what they're saying and
Where was that section? You said about the 10 days?
It's 11-10.3 right in the beginning, the second paragraph.
For events open to the public?
Licenses may be applied for annually, specifying the dates of operation or events as applicable, which I don't think, if you're gonna have an annual license, how do you know what the dates are even gonna be? So I think that needs to come out. I don't think that's manageable or enforceable. And then it says, if you read further, or may be applied for individually for use on specific dates or events, as applications must be filed with the township clerk's office 10 days prior to the date of the use or the event.
I just
So
think
that,
it's,
I just think we're overdoing it. The other thing was we were having a pretty significant conversation about, really, do we need to micromanage these things? And my initial, comments, at least around this, was, yes, we should manage them in our township-owned parks, playgrounds, and areas. But for individual people that want to have these food trucks or individual events that they are having and hosting, I don't know that we want to get involved. I think also us getting involved adds a level of us of involvement, and I don't know that we want to have
But
that.
I think 90% of that's covered. If they're having an event and they're having a truck, nothing's required. I just don't think it's very clear. And if you're reading it, in depth, I think you can say that, yes, that letter C under 11-10.5 infers that. But I think it's under food, mobile food vendor locations. Nobody's looking for an exemption
Right.
if they're reading
Well,
through
it's
this.
also under 10.4, number 6.
Where?
A, 11-10.4A6, if the mobile unit is at a public event, blah, 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 if there will be 2 or more mobile food trucks
But that doesn't talk about one event.
at a public event, so it's one of, if
But
it's at-
nothing, I think there just needs to be
I
something
said
that
this to you just
says,
now.
if
my
you
email.
are coming to one event, you don't need a license, just in regular words that people understand. Right in the beginning, if you are coming for one event, you don't need one. If you are coming for a public event, you don't need one. Like, I think right up front, where we have this little breakdown, I think that needs to be right up front. So a food truck provider or anyone that works here can quickly refer to it and understand what the rules are. So if it's a one-time event, you don't need one. If you're getting one annually, I think asking people to provide the exact dates throughout the
Well,
year
there's
is
an or
overkill.
clause there, so I think that's taken care of.
I think there's a lot of rules built on what you can and can't do, and when there needs to be applications made, when there needs to be licenses had. I think maybe just a section that says an exemption and an explanation of who's exempt to make it easy for somebody who wants to look this up and understand that.
Okay, so if I can summarize that, so 2 things. Number 1, Councilman Quinn, if you look at 11-10.3A, I guess the 4th paragraph, the one that starts with licenses may be applied. Okay, it says in advance, annually, and then or can be applied individually for a specific event. So you can apply annually, or you can apply ad hoc as needed. So I think that's taken care of there.
But if I read that and it says you can apply for it individually means one, for use
specific date.
on specific dates or events.
Yep. But to your point, I do agree that a clarifying statement, and I don't think this would materially change things, this is just a clarifying statement.
Right.
I think to both your points, it says something to the effect that one truck, a single truck at a single event, no license would be required, and
That's
put
it.
in some magic,
That
you
answers
know,
90% of it.
yeah,
So then the other thing is 10 business days prior.
right, because the clerk will need time to process
That's
that
if you need one.
if we need one.
So a single event wouldn't
Okay.
matter.
So a single event doesn't matter.
So say it's, there's
That's
going to be
fine.
an event with 5 food trucks, they at least have to apply 10 days in advance.
So,
It's not actually a single event, right? It's a single truck.
Single truck.
Single truck
event.
event, yes.
so 11-10.3,
We'll add C, paragraph C, that says exemption for a single event with only one truck, no license is required. Adds magic words that make it pretty.
the other thing is here where we refer to, again, so if we look at under 11-10.3, where I think something should be in there. We need to figure out what we want to manage.
Can I just make a suggestion while we're doing all this? Should we make a motion to amend now so that
Okay.
while we're doing this?
Let's do one at a time. So
Well, just to clarify, so you want to exempt out so that a food truck that intends to participate in a single event and be the only truck at that event, no license is required.
correct.
Now, what if that same truck,
On township property.
No, there's
just,
just no,
if I could finish, that same truck then says, well, I'm going to do, and then, 2 weeks later, they have, again, they file, they show up at another event, they're the only truck there, and they say, I didn't need a license. I'm one truck at one event, and they do this over and over and over again. Is that an end run around what we're trying to do?
I mean, that there could be, it could be used maliciously, or somebody could have been at a food truck event and been like, wow, this was a really good food truck. I'm going to call these people at my event next week. So it could just happen like that, or somebody could try and use it in that way. But I mean, now you're like, trying to police something that hasn't happened yet.
Well, I think whenever you write an ordinance or a law, you have to foresee, things. That's sort of what I anticipate, that we have to write things to foresee events that could happen and then have to deal with it as opposed to doing it on the fly. But, I think if that becomes a problem, if we start seeing the same food truck at multiple events, and they're the only food truck, and they do not have a license, then we can deal with it as it comes. I'm just pointing that out.
No, that's a good point. But I agree with what you went on to say that until we see a pattern or a problem, I think I'd rather just go out with something simple and we refine it as we see problems.
So, Tom, can I just ask, should we just table it, rework it, reintroduce it, or should we make a motion to amend?
Well, if we could capture between now and our reintroduction, capture these changes, that certainly would be the most efficient way to do it, as opposed to making a series of
Motions?
5 or 6 motions.
So, Chris, I didn't want to interrupt you. I just wanted to see what's the best way to forward. Do you have more that you wanted to?
I think fundamentally, I have no problem taking this and typing it up and sending it. I don't have a problem. But again, I think we just need to have a discussion around the scope. Because when we're talking about all these different use cases or these different applications, they all are specific to a particular use case, a venue, a place. In my opinion, one of the big reasons why we looked at this anyway was specifically for food trucks that were on municipal property. So you were going to a public space that the township owned, and it was a park, a playground, a sports event, something to that nature. Not to get involved with policing food trucks on private or commercial private events and things of that nature. So
That was already exempt though, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's not
Yeah.
covered.
No,
Yeah, this does not apply to private properties serving their own guests, private events.
private property serve, but there's also one that says on private property for public. So what
Yes.
is that?
So if there's
What is
one on-
that?
On private property, but it's serving the public, there's a parade, so PNC Bank decides we're gonna put a food truck in our parking lot, and they're gonna serve the public. That does, under 11-10.5, that does subject them to a license.
Same thing with, you want to park in front of the post
But
office because somebody
private-
says, I'm just going to park there. It's a
Yeah,
great spot to.
Purely private event is not subject to
Correct.
any licensing under this.
But that's commercial, that's all commercial property, right? So where do you draw the distinction? I'm just saying, I guess I get confused, and
I know
I'm
what
gonna
you're saying.
type it
You're
out.
looking at private property as a homeowner, not a commercial property.
I'm saying, I think that private property
You could
and
never,
commercial properties, we stay out, in my opinion, we
I
don't
mean,
overmanage it.
you couldn't police private property of a homeowner if a neighbor walks over and orders something for the food truck and the guy's like, oh, I thought he was a guest.
Right.
You could never police that. Commercial property is different.
So and the other thing is, when we make reference in this ordinance to our open spaces where we do talk about it, we need to make sure that we include Ungerman, because Ungerman is not included in here. It's only White Lake and Station Park. So White
Personally,
Lake,
I do not want to see Ungerman there because I want to protect the restaurants that are in our town center and have people patronize our brick and mortar shop.
but this doesn't say you can't have a food truck at Ungerman.
Yes, it does, because it's a public spot. There's no food trucks in public spots
So
unless
if
you're at White Lake.
softball has a softball tournament, like they do every year, they have schools out tournaments and they have fundraising tournaments all year long, you're gonna tell them that they cannot have.
They
a
have an
food truck?
event. If they have an event, like a tournament, you can, as we just said, invite, like the concert is close to Ungerman. The concert is an event, you can have a food truck there, a single food truck in an event. But as a matter of rule, I don't want somebody who has a pizza truck or a taco truck or name your truck to just sit around and park in Ungerman and avoid and have an easy way to pick up dinner and lunch while the brick and mortar stores are staring at them saying, I'm just invested in my store. Why are you parking at PNC Bank, at Ungerman Field by the post office?
No,
It's a way to get around.
then-
I
Makes
don't
sense.
disagree. We want to encourage
Yep.
businesses for downtown
Makes
Sparta.
sense. Okay.
And also I'll note under this that we do exempt retail food establishments. So for example, Sparta Dairy, which is located at close proximity to Ungerman Field, is allowed under this ordinance to have a food truck basically at any time. So that would be an option available to anyone using Ungerman Field. We'd hope they'd use, Sparta Dairy, then the food truck, and then Cafe Perot. So that's another way.
I think the last time we said that we don't want that to be a permanent ongoing situation, right? That this mobile unit is defined as temporary. Right,
Yes,
and it wouldn't- so if they're parked there every single weekend, every single day for the year, then they are gonna take away business from locals.
Well, I think we also said that there are ordinances, other ordinances that permit, that prohibit trucks from being parked for long periods of time like that in certain spots.
Yeah, and
It was covered under another ordinance.
I think that's only peddlers, right? That's under the peddlers.
No, he's saying the opposite, when a truck just parks there and stays for long periods of time.
Right, like somebody's plumbing truck, somebody made an agreement
Oh,
with the
right,
dairy
right, right,
queen,
right, yes.
or at the Sparta Dairy to park the plumbing truck there.
So I'll just type up the rest of my stuff and I'll just send it in. That's fine. So I guess
Okay,
we
so,
leave
so
it as-
door number one is, I think we all agreed on that clarifying, which is not a materially change to the ordinance, to clarify that one truck, one event, no license. I'd like us to vote on that, and then if that's the only thing that we agree on as a council, then I see no reason why we couldn't pass this as it is. If the council feels that we want to spend more time on this and collect more input, that's fine too, but we'll vote on that too.
Chris, is there any other material change that you think is necessary before you're okay with this moving forward?
Trying to look.
And if you didn't have a red line copy, because I forgot to send it out, that's a
At one
valid
point-
point that we can,
At one point, they talk about the Sussex County Fire Marshal, but also my understanding is that food trucks need to get it. They need to meet with, and maybe you can help me here, the fire marshal from Sparta, don't they?
Tom has to approve, signify all the permits, and he already has a schedule.
Okay.
Somebody's going out 6 months, they give him all the dates. And
He gets that from the county?
he gets in-house, if it's in it, it's
From
in the
here.
ordinance of Sparta, it's governed by him, because it's a mobile food establishment with fire extinguishment and stuff like that, so it's governed by him. He can approve or deny as such.
Okay, so then we would need to just add that in here, because it says the Sussex County Fire Marshal, but I think it also affects,
I think that is
It's
right,
in the-
right above
It's
it.
in the ordinance, square miles, contained within Sparta, it's under his jurisdiction.
Yeah.
okay,
Also, Chris, it's right above it. I think it's in I
Aye, yep.
for Sparta.
Mobile unit shall apply and be inspected by the Sparta Township Fire Marshal as required by applicable ordinance, statutes, codes, and regulations.
where, I don't even know where you guys are looking.
Right above Jay, the one you were just mentioning about. it says
11
Sussex County.
dot, 11-10.6
Okay,
I.
and then 11-10.4 says obtain all other state and federal permits, licenses, and approvals, including but not limited to approval from the Sussex County Fire Marshal and Sparta Township zoning and land use approvals if applicable. That's where I saw it. Maybe we should add Sparta Fire Marshal, but
No,
you're saying it's
It
already
says it right
there.
above it, right, the line above it.
Yeah,
wait.
I'm telling you, it's conflicted. I says it.
No, one is the application
I
process.
doesn't.
One
Number
is
5 says Sussex County Fire Marshal.
two different sections.
Yeah, two different sections.
Yeah, I know, but isn't that, okay. All right. So the
It
fact
just
that
says
it's
it.
not in both places, it's fine. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did email everyone here, if you have access to your email, a red lined copy. And I apologize. I thought I sent that out. I was wrong.
So I guess the rest of my concerns were just that I really was only looking at this through municipal property and playgrounds and parks as a, maybe a, more of a public safety thing than the rest. So I can concede to the rest of what's there if everyone is in agreement that they feel that we should be doing all this. The one thing I will say is before we implement one more process to our existing employees, before this goes live, there needs to be some kind of electronic or some kind of system that's in place to be able to handle these requests so that our staff is not, I think we just need to make sure that we have something easy and simple to be able to handle the requests. That's
I
all.
mean, I think in
Could be
general,
online.
we've talked about doing online permitting for everything, and I think that's something we
that
need to
will,
try
yeah.
and push forward.
So here's what I would recommend. Let's see if we will vote on the one clarification that we have that will advance us to a hearing in this 2-week period. If we find other problems, then we can bring it back to the drawing board at that time. But if we find that there's no problem, then at the next meeting, this could be passed. But again, there's nothing preventing us in this next 2 weeks from finding something and raising a concern and revisiting it. I think that's perfectly fine. So that said, I think Councilman Hertzberg made a motion to add a clarification under 11-10.3C, that we would add a clarifying statement that says, if for a single event where only one truck is available or one truck is present, that no license is required. May I have a second for that?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any further discussion or comment on that motion to amend? Hearing none, may I have a roll call vote on that motion to amend as I just described?
Councilman Blumetti,
Yes.
Councilman Hertzberg,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Clark,
Yes.
Councilwoman Quinn,
Yes.
Mayor Chiarello.
Yes, that amendment has been passed. Are there any other amendments we want to make at this time?
I don't think an amendment is required, but and if I'm not mistaken, if you look at the section 11-10.3, class 4 license required, after the semicolon, there's a, small capital D. I don't know if that's supposed to be there. That maybe just be a typo.
Yeah, the Phantom D.
10.3.
But,
The title of it.
yeah, there's
In the
the
title.
letter D, yeah, there's the letter D is after that. I don't think that's just probably a stray typo.
Okay.
But I don't think an
We'll look
amendment.
at that.
Okay.
Rogue D. Okay. Any other comments or questions on ordinance 23-16? Excellent. May I have a motion? I'm sorry. We may have a vote. Actually, will the clerk please call the roll to introduce ordinance 23-16 as amended?
Councilman Blumetti,
Yes.
Councilman Hertzberg,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Clark,
Yes.
Councilwoman Quinn,
Yes.
Mayor Chiarello.
Yes. And again, I want to make it clear that in no way do I want to suppress any further discussion on this. We have a period before we get to hear it, and if there are concerns, we'll address them at that time. May I have a motion? Will the clerk please read the title of ordinance 23-19?
An ordinance amending Chapter 2 Administration, Article 9, Committees, Boards, Commissions, Section 2-39, Environmental Commission of the Revised General Ordinance of the Township of Sparta.
Thank you. May I have a motion to introduce the ordinance as read?
Make a motion to introduce the ordinance as read.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any comments or questions on ordinance 23-19? Hearing none, may I have a roll call vote, please, to introduce 23-19?
Councilman Blumetti,
Yes.
Councilman Hertzberg,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Clark,
Yes.
Councilwoman Quinn,
Yes.
Mayor Chiarello.
Yes, the ordinance is introduced. At this time, we have no ordinances up for a hearing. Moving on to the resolutions. Are there any comments or questions from the public on any of the resolutions 9-1 through 9-8? Seeing no one, I will bring it back to the council. Are there any resolutions from this list that we would like to carve out for a separate consideration and debate?
Yes, I just have a clarifying comment I'd like to propose for 9-7, so we can carve that out.
Okay.
If you'd like, we're handling it now.
Well, let's take it. I assume we will carve out 9-8 for a separate vote. Anybody else from 9-1 through 9-6?
And carve out 9-6 too.
9-6?
Yeah.
9-6. So 6, 7, and 8 will have separate, we'll vote on separately. Any other resolutions? Okay, may I have a motion to approve resolutions 9-1 through 9-5?
So moved.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Excellent. Any comments or questions on resolutions 9-1 through 9-5? Hearing none, may I have all those in favor of approving resolutions 9-1 through 9-5 say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? Okay, resolutions 9-1 through 9-5 are approved. May I have a motion to approve Resolution 9-6?
So moved.
Thank you. May I have a second? Thank you. Any questions or comments on Resolution 9-6?
Just a question, is this the final payment for the White Lake Field?
Yes.
Okay, and so we don't anticipate any other payments?
This phase.
For this phase, yeah.
Well, okay, so that there's another phase? Is that right? That we've bonded, that we've raised money for, that we're going to have to approve?
I believe so. We had this discussion prior, but this is the final payment for Tomco.
Okay.
What else is remaining? Does anyone know?
There was an additional 2 fields that's supposed to be next to that and lights, but they're phased so that all that didn't, fiduciarily, it didn't come in one fiscal year.
Has that bond been approved? The money's been approved already, or it has to come up again?
No, it has to come up again.
Yeah, I don't think the money, I think this was the project that was approved.
Okay.
And then later you'll approve, different
if we
phases
choose
as
to
they
go
come
so.
up.
Okay.
Yep. Any other questions or comments on 9-6? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving Resolution 9-6, say aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstain? All right, 9-6 is approved. May I have a motion to approve Resolution 9-7?
So moved.
Thank you. May I have a second? Thank you. Motion seconded. Any comments or questions on Resolution 9-7?
Yes, I would just like to propose a phrase to help clarify the intent of this. I think it's something that collectively we had envisioned. If you follow down to where the document, the resolution says, now therefore be it resolved. The fourth line where it says, each speaker shall be granted no more than 3 minutes in the aggregate. I believe after that, it would be clearer if we said, within each specific public comment section.
I did catch that too, but
Yeah.
it is later on in there. It says
Yeah.
no more than one appearance during each public comment section. So the
Yeah.
second to last line does say that.
I see that, but just when you see in the aggregate, it almost gives the impression it's 3 minutes total throughout the different portions of our meeting, where I think it's 3 minutes per segment.
Well, that's a good point, because it actually does mean that it's 3 minutes total.
Okay,
So in other words, you could put in 1 minute in one section, 30 seconds in another, 1:30 in another. So if the intent is 3 minutes in each public comment section, then indeed we should clarify.
okay, that's my understanding and preference. I'm not sure what everyone else thinks.
Yeah, no, that was my understanding.
And mine too. So I think the request is to the phrase that is in that second to last line of that first, therefore, during each public comments, during a public comment section of any public meeting of the council, we duplicate that phrase after the word aggregate.
Or just get rid of in the aggregate.
I think we get rid of the aggregate.
3 minutes,
So it's
in the 3 minutes
in
during each,
Public comment
in
section.
Yes.
each public comment section. Okay, excellent. Any other questions or comments on Resolution 9-7?
My comment is I am opposed to this motion. I think it's unnecessary. I think that, at least my sort of view of how I like to hear from the public, and yes, brevity is a soul of wit, and we would hope that people could kind of land the plane and speak to us, but I'm not in favor of limiting people's ability to, if they're going to take the time out of their busy lives to show up here. I would like to give them as much opportunity to speak as necessary. I think we've had maybe 2 meetings in the 9 months that I've been here that we've had a standing room only. I think kind of looking at the turnout that we have tonight, it wouldn't be necessary to impose a 3-minute because there's not enough people in here to take up a very long time. So I'm just in favor of letting people have their say. I feel that's sort of fundamental part of our democracy. And so I'm not in favor of limiting this.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on 9-7? I'll offer one of my own. I do recognize part of the problem that we face, or the challenge that we face as a council, is that this body only does work twice a month. And it's difficult to get a lot of work done when you're only working twice a month together. I know we have various committees that we work on together, but these twice a month, this period is valuable, and we should make the best use of this. Is our working time. We should make the best use of our working time, and it's been my experience that that working time has been severely curtailed by members of the public providing excessive comments. I think the comment period is by nature supposed to be, here's what I feel about this, here's why I approve or disapprove of what we're talking about. And I think that could be done in 3 minutes in a session. It's also been my experience that other towns also provide a similar cap on meeting time, on public speaking time. I know our Board of Ed does that as well. So it's very common. In fact, I don't think I've ever been to a council meeting in any town where there was an unlimited time for the public to speak. So I think, and the last thing I'll mention is that we have members of our staff here that have been working here for a long day, getting here 7, 8 in the morning, and having them spend till midnight here on a working day is probably not good for the township employees. For elected officials, we choose this job, and so even though I work a full day too, and I'm here till midnight, I really have to give deference to our administrative staff who has to be here for a very long day. So for all those reasons, I think this is a very fair accommodation.
I'd like to add to that I agree with those statements, and I am a little cautious about the idea of putting a limit, but I want to make sure that everyone has a chance to speak in a given amount of time without driving people home, and out of here because they couldn't wait that long or the meeting goes too long. So I would just I think we all agree we're going to keep an open mind, and if this may not be perfect, but if it's not, we'll refine it as we go and make sure it works for everyone.
Absolutely. And above all, this has to be consistently applied. We can't say some meetings we do, some meetings we don't, some people we do, some people we don't. So this will be new for us, and there'll be a learning curve, and we'll make sure that we do what I can to make sure this is consistently applied.
Well, just 2 comments. Was there any reason why we couldn't put a time limit based on the attendance? Meaning if you have 25 or more people in attendance, you could assume that, you'd have to assume that maybe 25 of those people would want to speak, and then you could impose a time limit based on the attendees, but it just seems unnecessary when we have, 3 people in the audience. Was that problematic from a legal standpoint or administration standpoint? Or I'm just sort of wondering why we didn't just only have the 3 minutes if, there's so many people in the audience that necessitated it.
And before you answer, I'd like to phrase the question differently. Is there any reason we couldn't suspend the rules in a meeting? And I think that has the same effect at what the council, what Deputy Mayor's asking.
The same, if not similar to both of
Yep.
these questions.
That's why I phrased it.
There's always the possibility of someone arguing that it's more subjective that way and that it's not consistently applied. And therefore, on a certain issue, it's limited to 3 minutes. On another issue, it's not limited to 3 minutes. And that's because of some protected category. So that's always a possibility.
Well, I think the limitation would not be on the substance of what's before the council, but the amount of people in the audience, which is not a subjective thing, but one that is objective, right? Where you have, a certain number of attendees, and that's quantifiable and verifiable, has nothing to do with the issue at hand. It has to do with the amount of people. And if you say if there's 25 or more, then speaking will be limited to 3 minutes. But if it's anything under that, there is no limit. That's all I'm saying, is that there's a way you could do it and take out all subjectivity to it and still allow people to have a little more speaking time, because then it wouldn't necessarily interfere with our administration of town business if there's only, it's going to take under an hour or so for public comment.
Any other?
I'd still have the concern of subjectivity, that there would be a potential argument that, hey, look, I was here last meeting, you allowed people to speak for unlimited. And now in this meeting, you're imposing this limit on my topic, and my topic Well, I'm looking for the same amount of time, and just because more people are here, or my topic is more popular in terms of public commentary, I'd be concerned that an argument could be carved out. Can I think of a particular case on point? No. But that's my concern. My concern is with a lack of consistency and a lack of consistent application. For example, the comment was made at the beginning of the meeting, are you going to keep track of the time? Are you gonna, or not really? I think it is very important that you keep track of the time. Again, if you're going to have a limiting procedure, it really has to be, in my opinion, applied consistently.
Okay, I mean, I respectfully disagree, but I think that another thing I don't want, I wouldn't lay all the blame for our long meetings on the public. I think part of it lies with the 5 people up here. And some of that is by design, right? We want transparency. But I think, also council, and this includes myself, should come up with ways to have a more efficient meeting, and ways to streamline that so we don't spend, 45 minutes deliberating on something that really should take 5 minutes. And so I don't want the public to come away with thinking that, well, the reason why they're having these long meetings is because the public doesn't know when to stop talking. Sometimes it's because I don't know when to stop talking, or fellow council people don't know when to stop talking. So, if we're going to put this limit on the public, let's put it on ourselves too, to do a better job of trying to do, work in advance, streamline things, and so that our staff doesn't have to be here to the wee hours of the morning.
Thank you. One additional comment I'll make is that this will be new, assuming we pass this, and if so, there's always an opportunity to make it better and learn from it and see what works and what doesn't and adjust accordingly.
So with that said, I guess I move that we move on with the,
Make a motion, I make a motion with the amendment.
Okay, so I guess the motion is to amend Resolution 9-7 to add that comment that we just spoke of?
Correct.
And that was
So in other words, I
approved and
believe it's a
accepted?
Motion to amend following the now therefore be it resolved, line 4, we're deleting in the aggregate, and we are amending it to read more than 3 minutes in each public comment section, regardless of
Yes.
whether speaking on general, et cetera.
I think Dean actually made the motion, so I'll second his motion for the amendment.
Okay, and again, we're voting to amend the resolution as we just discussed. May I have a roll call vote, please, to make that amendment?
Councilman Blumetti,
Yes.
Councilman Hertzberg,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Clark,
No.
Councilwoman Quinn,
yes.
Mayor Chiarello.
Yes, the resolution is amended as we discussed. And now may I have a motion to introduce or to approve Resolution 9-7 as amended?
So moved?
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on that? May I have a roll call vote, please?
Councilman Blumetti,
Yes.
Councilman Hertzberg,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Clark,
No.
Councilwoman Quinn,
Yes.
Mayor Chiarello.
Yes, the resolution is passed as amended. I may have a motion to approve Resolution 9-8.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 9-8.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion or comment? May I have a roll call vote, please?
Councilman Blumetti,
Yes.
Councilman Hertzberg,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Clark,
Yes.
Councilwoman Quinn,
This is 9-8.
9-8.
I'm going to abstain.
Yeah.
Mayor Chiarello.
Yes, resolution is passed. Moving on to council liaison updates. We'll start with Councilman Blumetti.
Okay, so a lot going on. I'm going to keep everyone posted on some of the things. So the Salute 07871 team is going to be meeting on the 21st. The Senior Advisory has their meeting on the 19th. The Municipal Alliance will be having their meeting next week as well. This is going to be their, not only just the budget meeting, but we're really looking forward to hearing more about the opioid settlement and the funding and when that's coming and how. Nick Louisi from the county is now responsible for basically being the clearinghouse, if you will, for the monies that are coming in from the opioid settlement. We're getting them in drips and drabs. We're not getting them all in one shot, so it'd be very interesting. And also, I don't think I've done this yet, but I want to extend a warm welcome to Lisa Lombardi, who's taking over Nick's position with the alliances. She's doing a fantastic job. So I just wanted to put that out there. That's what we have going on right now so far. And I'll be coming back to the council. We talked about the food insecurities issue. I'm going to be bringing it up, and we're going to be discussing it at the Alliance for the budget items. I did speak to Nick Louisi and get approval that we can use funds, not from Giada, not from Jakarta, from the state itself, but we can use Alliance funds, and we have them. So I'm going to be bringing it to the Alliance Board, my recommendation. We're going to be talking about it, and then I'll be coming back to the council with what the decision is. But I did get approval from Nick that we can support that initiative through as long as the funds are not used from the state of New Jersey funds, which they are not going to be. So those are my updates.
Excellent, thanks. Councilman Hertzberg?
I have none.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Clark?
Yes, that we are getting organized for the New Jersey 250 Revolution Committee. I sent out an email. We have now about, I think, 8 members that don't include yet the representatives from the Sparta Historical Society. They will also join us. We're hoping to get together next Monday to begin the kickoff for that and to, welcome each other and start brainstorming on how to give kind of a Sparta touch to this committee and this celebration.
Thank you for organizing
That is all I have.
So is it set next Monday, or is that what the target date is?
That's the target date. I'm making sure we can have a quorum. I just wanted to set a date, and if we don't have a quorum, then we'll find a date that works, so we do have one. So, the RSVPs are starting to trickle in.
Excellent, thank you. Anything else?
No.
Okay, thanks. Councilman Blumetti?
So the Environmental Commission has not met since we last met here. The 8/24 meeting was canceled. On a different note, with respect to the Planning Board and the conversation here at the council meeting on August 8th regarding the PCED zone, that discussion, as we know, the Wilson family was here, and they agreed to extend a pause or moratorium on that property for 60 days. So the Wilson family, as I understand it, is planning to attend the planning board meeting on October 18th, which is a public meeting. And that obviously is past 60 days. I've heard that they've agreed to extend it. I just wanted to ask what we need to do to solidify that or to extend it officially, because I don't know if that was in writing. I'm not sure how that agreement occurred. But
There is no agreement with them in writing. I mean, it was just a comment that was made at a council meeting. Candidly, I don't see it as necessarily enforceable. I don't know if they made any agreements with the planning board.
nothing in writing that I know of.
So, I mean, we certainly could reach out to their attorney and see if we could strike an agreement in writing.
Yeah, I would think that would be advisable. If they're coming in to talk on October 18th, and that's already 10 days past 60, and then if there needs to be conversations and discussions and future meetings, that's going to be well past even that 70-day mark. It would be nice if we had that assurance that nothing
Okay,
would happen for another 30 days or 60 days, whatever it would be, so that that process could play its
I can
part.
reach out to their attorney and see what they'd be agreeable to.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else?
No, that's all I have.
Yeah, and I'll just say that, Tom, you and I should talk it will be, privilege of communications before you reach out to them. I just have some things I want to talk to you about with them, but it would be subject to attorney-client privilege at this point.
Councilman Bonametti, can you share with us just an executive summary of the PEAC meeting on Monday?
Yeah, sure. Last night was the first meeting of the PEAC.
Plan Endorsement Advisory Committee.
Yep. And that's a committee that contains members from different boards and members of the public. And it will be an ongoing committee to look at doing a municipal self-assessment and a visioning statement, all really part of our process to be endorsed for our town center section of town under the New Jersey State Plan endorsement. It started a number of years ago, I think in 2021, and now it's been kind of on pause for about a year, almost a year. And now we're working with the town planner, and we're going to start that process again to put together the documents and the assessment to become, hopefully, depending on how it works out and if there's any conditions, but to have our town center be part of the State Plan Endorsement Center. And that would lead to the potential of easier time getting grants or other funding and other regulatory approvals. You kind of rise to the top of the list in some cases. So it's going to be ongoing for a while, and that's going to feed into our master plan work as well.
Excellent, thank you. All right, for myself, a couple things committee-wise. The Cultural Affairs Committee, I can say that the concert series for the summer has ended. It was another successful series that we had, and I hope everybody from Sparta was able to enjoy and avail themselves of the free rock and roll. The library board meets for this month tomorrow. Unfortunately, I will need to miss that as I have a work commitment at that time, but it is open to the public at 4:30 at the library. I believe the health committee meets next week, right?
I sent the invitation.
Yep, saw that, that I'm able to make. We did meet with representatives from the Board of Education yesterday. We discussed some issues related to safe schools and other things, but that was a nice meeting with the Board of Ed. Revolution NJ we talked about, PEAC we talked about. The Business Development Committee. I had a couple people ask me when the meeting, has that meeting been set
I
up?
have two. So last time I asked Sam, he was working on getting me an admin. So he finally had emailed me who they were gonna assign. I was actually gonna talk to you tonight. There's that and another thing I'm gonna bring up in my
Okay,
but yeah.
excellent, thanks. That's all I have for committee reports. There's no old business carried forward, so what we used to call old, and now we're calling old and new business together. Councilman Hertzberg, do you want to start?
Sure. So something that I think is old business, but however, we're gonna do this. So as we talked about last time, we had brought up setting up a meeting to deal with the drug rehabilitation homes that are in some of our neighborhoods. Again, we're having issues. Somebody sent me a picture of an ambulance and some police there, so I don't know if it was an overdose or what it is, but I don't want to have this meeting after something bad happens to somebody in one of these neighborhoods, so I think we need to schedule this sooner rather than later, and Jim, I'll talk to you offline about setting up that meeting with some of the zoning people, and we were pretty far down the road as far as what needed to happen, and then pretty much everybody involved doesn't work here anymore. So I think we need to reevaluate that, but the residents, they've been in, they've called, they've emailed, they've done everything they can do, and they're frustrated, and I think we need to get it addressed.
I know you brought it up in prior
Yeah.
meetings.
Yep. And then again, I'll send you an email because like I said, I had asked Sam and there was only one person in the zoning office at the time and he was working on getting someone. I think they finally agreed on someone. So I'd like to have her communicate out to the membership and get a meeting scheduled for next month. That's it. That's all I
Excellent,
have.
thank you. All right, Councilman Blumetti?
No new business.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Clark?
Just on old business, just a clarifying question, and I think it may have come up in Mr. Zepp's comments about the committee, people who want to be on the master plan committee. Am I right, there's a window of time that they can apply?
That's correct.
Okay, and so I know there's people who have expressed interest, but if they have already expressed interest, but they have done so outside that window, would those people not be on that committee?
They need to reapply.
They have to reapply. Is there a reason why we cabined it for a certain period of time, whereas like some of our other committees, we don't have a window of time? We just, you fill it in and you can get on and you're, then we appoint you. Is there some reasoning why we have it to, what is it, like 7 days?
It's like a week, 10 days maybe.
What was the rationale behind limiting it to a week compared to why we don't limit it for other committees?
Well, my understanding is, first of all, it's not an ongoing advisory board, it's a subcommittee. Second, I don't think that the forms have been set up in advance beforehand to accept that. So they haven't been reviewed for that purpose. So we're going to keep a clean window so that we can have easier to identify who's coming in for that subcommittee and who's interested at this point.
Can we try to scrape the application that we've received to see if we can discern if there's anybody that wanted that committee specifically and to reach out to that person to reapply? Is that even feasible? I mean, if it's just brute force, I can try to go over it this weekend and see if I can find anybody who's specifically said, I want to be on the master plan review committee.
We could talk to the chairwoman of the planning board. I don't want to speak for her.
Yeah, because I'd hate to have a scenario where someone was under the impression that by expressing their interest at the time that they expressed it, that was going to get them at least consideration for the committee, only to find out later, well, you didn't apply within the window, and so you're out. I think that if we have interested citizens in this, that we should do all we can to accommodate them as best we can. Doesn't mean they wind up on the committee, it just means we need to have a pretty fair process.
Can we add people after the committee starts working?
I think right now, the plan is that the window is open for that 10-day period for people to apply. And once we get started, that hasn't been talked about. I haven't been in those conversations, but I don't think so. I think we're going to try to just get this up and running. We expect there to be a pretty strong showing of interested residents.
Okay.
So this is supporting the master plan?
Yes.
So we haven't approved yet that we're moving forward with the master plan review. So this is just, we're getting citizens together to get their ideas on the master plan? I'm just not following what the,
Yeah, no, this will be the subcommittee that is forming now that will work through the master plan review over the next 6, 9, 12 months, however long it takes. So we are moving forward with looking at the master plan and determining which sections, if not all of it, need to be redone or reevaluated. So that's the process that's starting.
so the master plan review, there's two things. You can look at different pieces of your master plan and then individually make recommendations to make updates to it. Or there is a formal master plan review process that takes years and about $250,000. So can you distinguish both? Because we have not said we are going to do the full master plan review yet. We haven't had that discussion yet.
Well, I can't say for sure whether we're going to do it from scratch, but the planning board is moving forward with doing a new master plan. So whether that means we scrap,
Move forward unless.
whether that means we scrap it all, or that means we do 40% or 80% of it, that hasn't been determined yet, but we are doing a massive overhaul of it, if not a new one.
What she's saying is that there's an official process for that and there's money involved.
Yeah, we've talked to Sam about that. So when the time comes, we've talked about how that money is appropriated for this.
I guess the first step would be to identify the scope of the work that you're doing.
Yeah,
And then you
yeah.
ask for, okay,
So
we're
that's
going
why I'm
to,
asking
we need
for
the
clarification. So this board is going to get together to come back with the scope of work, and that we're going to take that into consideration as we look at redoing the master plan? Is that the purpose of this committee?
This committee is intended to be there from the beginning to the end of the master plan work,
And who's appointing the people on that committee?
the planning board,
The planning board?
yes. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be cross-sectional across the different advisory boards. It's going to be including residents and public stakeholder groups. So it's going to be a broad group. I'm not saying that that whole large group is going to be meeting every 2 weeks to work on this, but that's going to be the stakeholder group, from my understanding. So that's what's starting now. Now, remember, we have the search going on right now, the professional search for the planner and for the attorney for the planning board. So that process is in parallel in a sense. So we can't go too far down the road until we know for sure which planner is going to be here for the long term. It may be the one we have now, it may be a new planner. That, those professionals have to be there by our side to drive this work
Well,
too.
we need to make a decision as a council to move forward with the entire initiative because you're going to need money. So to start, before we have agreed on what we're doing, that's why I'm trying to get from you what the purpose is of this committee, because you can't say we're starting it because we haven't approved it yet.
Well, that's part of the process. We need to get together, right, with outside input too, not just the planning board,
Correct.
to look at this, to look at it as a whole. But the intention is that there will be a large chunk of work to be done on the master plan.
So,
It's not two separate committees. It's not that this committee is going to just, on its own, just figure out the scope and then dissipate. It's going to be the same group,
Right.
and it's going to just keep moving forward. I mean, we're planning on moving forward with the new master plan. I'm calling it new because, for the most part, it will be looked at thoroughly, all sections. There's going to be parts that probably stay, I would imagine, but there's going to be, new open space plan, it's going to be new circulation plan, it's going to be new demographics, it's going to have all the studies that back it up, so it's going to be a major chunk of work.
so I think what the councilwoman is saying is that once we're at the point where we need to start spending money, the council will ultimately approve the funds. But before that happens, this subcommittee is going to tell us the scope of the work and how much money they need. Is my understanding.
Yeah. We could follow up offline afterwards to figure out about the question, Neil and Dan, you had about scraping old applications or looking historically to see if
Yeah.
we can look at those forums to see if people noted master plan subcommittee on there.
Right, and just to send them an email, a contact saying, hey, you 3 months ago, you were interested in this committee, are you still? If so, please apply during this window. Okay, anything else?
And we're going to inform the public about this window. Is there,
That's a good question. So
what's the method that the planning board is using to notify the public that there's this application time period?
It'll be on the website, and it's already posted on the message board out front.
Okay.
And by talking about this in public, we hope that somebody might pick it up and who might write something somewhere, maybe.
Yeah. And it's also announced at the planning board meetings too.
Okay, great.
All right, anything else?
And that was Neil, you were asking, right?
Yeah, I don't have, that was my old business, was just my question about that, but
Okay.
I have nothing further.
Did I get to everybody? Councilman Quinn, do you have any?
I do.
Okay, please go ahead,
So
sorry.
I want to just get together with you also, and Jim and Sam as well, because I want to move forward with that press release for Smart 9/11, so we can, right before the hurricanes and the bad weather starts coming, just get that out to everybody again. It really is a great system. You can go out, make updates. There's a lot of good stuff out there, so I just want to make sure we get it out to everybody. Also, Tom, I wanted to just ask you as well. One of the things that we agreed as a council months ago was that we were going to treat trade-related education costs for our employees the same way that we treat, bachelor's degrees or associate's degrees, master's degrees, and certifications in finance and different things like that. Meaning that we were going to reimburse costs that our employees incurred through trade, that were associated with trade-related training. If someone needs to get mechanic.
Somebody said that was already in there.
It is not in the employee handbook. We were going to update the employee handbook because the employee handbook is not clear and doesn't include specifically verbiage. And I just want the employees to understand that, in fact, if somebody needs a CDL license, that is now something, and again, we said we were going to stay with the exact same guidelines that are in place for any other matriculated degree, meaning we will reimburse it, but you need to be here for a period of 2-3 years, whatever it was for the matriculated learning was going to be the same with the trade learning. But what we're just saying is that we value trade learning just as much as we do everything else. All of your, your skills and what you need are dependent upon the job you have. One is not more important than the other. So I just want to make sure that we are going back and looking at that employee handbook to make sure that everyone understands that trades are included now. That's all.
So the concern I have there, if I can jump in, is that although I do agree, we discussed that, I think ultimately, if this is part of a bargain class, that if we're going to make that arrangement, financial arrangement, that needs to be reflected in the bargaining agreement, in the CBA. Whether or not it's in the handbook, I mean, I think it first has to be in our contract.
It can be in the personnel policy manual, the employee handbook, to be applicable to employees who are not in the unions. But also, if the township was desirous of doing that for even union members, I doubt the unions would object. So,
I think it was just clarification of intent. The way I understood the last conversation is that it wasn't intended to exclude that. It just wasn't specific about it
yeah,
in there.
I'd have to
Right.
take a look at the exact language in the individual contracts, but
So if you wouldn't mind, it's
Yeah,
been
I
on my
can
list and I keep forgetting to bring it up. So I would just like to make sure that that is there. The other thing is new business.
And before you move on, maybe there should be some kind of consistency review with the contract in case the contract specifically states we do not reimburse for those things. You want those to be in sync. Because maybe it was bargained at some point that we specifically do not reimburse for those things. So I just think that should be consistent with the bargained contract. But otherwise, I'm completely in agreement.
And the other thing I just wanted to bring up, and I think this is a cyclical thing, but one that we are seeing more and more. I did receive a certain amount of residents reaching out with regard to concerns about Airbnbs. I know we've talked about this before, but it's not just in one place in town, it's all over the place. And so I've received several concerned residents that are reaching out that are really saying, we didn't understand, when we signed up, we didn't know that we were going to have new neighbors every 3 days or a day or 3 days or 4 days. I know some municipalities do have structure in their ordinances that basically say there's not allowed to be a rental under 30 days, for example. So at least if you go, it's a long-term rental. But I think what's happening is, as we see more and more with these Airbnbs, it's not a long-term rental, and you can have people coming and going almost daily or every 2-3 days for a weekend here and there or whatever. And it's, people are very concerned about it, and I think they have a right to be. They don't know who's there. They don't, they have children, they have families, they don't know who's coming and going. For the most part, the town doesn't even know it's an Airbnb. So again, we have this situation where we don't even know what's going on. And I'm wondering if it's not worth a discussion, or maybe, Tom, you can get back to us to let us know. I know we had this discussion once at the planning board, and I know that we were told that we're limited, like, if you are a private, like an HOA or a private community, you stand a better chance of being able to put in stricter guidelines. But maybe we could look at what I see in some of the other, I believe I've seen it in other litigation. I looked this up about 1.5 years ago, was that some townships do say it's a minimum of 30 days. And I think, at least with that said, I don't know if it's specific to Airbnb, but I think it's just in general with rentals. I think our residents deserve for us to at least explore. We don't want to turn people away. We understand that people have the right to rent their real estate, but at the same token also, I think we need to be mindful that the rental landscape has changed with the addition of Airbnb. So,
Are they permitted in Sparta?
Airbnbs, we don't have, I don't believe. we
Not-
have
not
anything that
permitted.
prohibits them.
They're not permitted.
right.
They're not regulated.
Okay, so there's no minimum, because I know when I had rental property, my rental property had to be registered with the township, and so with that, it's inspected and stuff, so we have no means of registering or inspecting or otherwise saying that you've got the right smoke detectors in place for exits for fire.
Not to my knowledge.
Interesting.
I don't think there's any regulation. I think that's what Tom told us. There's no regulation at all.
Right, I don't believe there is.
Yeah, that's, I mean, speaking personally, I know that I'm probably an outlier and maybe the only one in America that thinks this way, but I think, and because Vrbo and Airbnb, that they're ubiquitous at this point, but that always scared me as being a way to get around having bona fide, inspected, registered places that you rent that have fire detectors and exits and all the things that a hotel or a rental, a long-term rental unit would otherwise have, that you're kind of skirting those laws by going to Airbnb. But again, I'm probably in the minority ubiquitous at this point. So is there any, like, next steps, or what are you asking?
I wanted to bring it here, but if we're all in consensus here, I would very much like it if maybe Tom could do some research and get back to us as far as what other municipalities are doing, what we could do here, what we can't do here. I know there's some municipal land use law around it, but I do think we could at least do something. And I also think that, just like with any business, I mean, basically you're turning, similar to what you were talking about before, you're turning a residential property in a residential zone into a commercial use. That's really what you're doing with an Airbnb.
Yeah.
And it should be registered, or there should be something, somebody should know.
I remember when we first had this discussion last year, year before, whenever it was, all the complaints came from Lake Mohawk, and the idea was that really they should be the one regulating
Right.
in their HOA.
But now it's way outside of that.
I haven't heard. The only thing I'd heard recently was there was actually an Airbnb-like app for people renting out their pool. And I heard people.
Heard of that
yeah,
as well, heard of that.
And that some people were upset that the neighbors were having lots of pool parties with lots of people that didn't live there.
Wow. I didn't even know about that.
That's
But
the thing.
this particular instance came up as well because, as you know, we have a number of private communities and private lakes and private beaches. And one of the situations that was brought to my attention, and it was not in Lake Mohawk at all, they found out about the Airbnb being next door to them because the people renting the Airbnb were given the tags to go to the beach and told people at the beach, oh yes, we're here in an Airbnb at blah, blah, blah road. And the one person at the beach said, that's great. That's that's right next door to me. Oh, hi, I'm your neighbor, But it was a weekend lease. And so then you start getting into other things that if you don't have these things registered, you can't even ensure that people understand. You can't be giving out tags to private things. You can't be, there's a lot of safety things. There's a lot of bodies of water around here. You're supposed to have a boating license and a boating permit and this, that, and the other thing. But I just think maybe we could start, if you could just really start looking into it for us and
Yeah,
come
we've
back,
done it with a few other communities.
that'd be great. Thank you.
There have been different issues, but we can summarize some of the options.
Thank
Excellent. I think that's a good way to start.
And again, I just want to be clear, I'm not trying to take away from people's right to rent or do business, but when you're doing that in a residential zone, I think we need to be,
I think it's
There's
something to
neighbors'
look at,
rights
but I also don't want to become the enforcement arm of the HOAs either.
no.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, in HOAs, that's what Tom Collins, I believe, had mentioned to us. You stand a better shot of regulating it in an HOA. The issue is that most of the complaints that I have gotten since the original ones are actually not in communities with HOAs.
Or if they're giving out beach tags, you've got to have HOAs.
No, there are some beaches that you can join, that you could just be in that area and choose to join. So, but that's what I'm saying. It's becoming, I think, bigger just because of the environment that we're in and things like that. It's not just in HOAs anymore, so. All right, so enough about that. That's everything I have.
Thank you. Anyone else? I think it's just me, right? Okay, a couple things. A couple of meetings ago, we approved William Enright for the Municipal Alliance Committee. We had since found out that Mr. Enright checked the wrong box, and so wished instead to be on the Business Development Committee. And so we successfully processed his removal from the Municipal Alliance Committee, and wanted to know if you had any concerns about adding Mr. Enright to the Business Development Committee.
Not at all.
So can you please tell Mr. Enright I apologize? No one told me that he was not on the committee anymore.
Okay, this just happened, you know.
Okay, so
Personally.
it probably happened because he got all kinds of stuff from me
Dude,
welcoming.
what is a
me
municipal
to-
night?
He actually
The
saw
wrong
Chris' emails
committee.
and said, hey, that was an accident.
That was an accident. I don't want to hear from her.
That's
No.
funny.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so I'll make a motion to add Ms. William Enright to the Business Development Committee.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstain? All right, welcome Mr. Enright to his second committee. And the only other thing I'll mention here, and I guess part of it is as an apology to our administrative staff. They have, and again, speaking only for myself, there are a number of projects, potential projects, things that we're looking into regarding parks, recreation, sports, athletic facilities, and people are going down different paths to do research and figure out what's feasible and whatnot. And in the end, it occurred to me that just not the right way to do it. And so we do have a number of ideas and improvements for the town we want to explore in the nature of parks and recreation and athletics. And really, we need someone to pull together a plan, lay everything on the table, prioritize, size things, and come up with a plan for first we do this, then we do this, and then we do this. And so it's done in an orderly manner without piecemeal having people quick do this and quick do something else. I say that because there are probably 3 different groups that will have a stake in that. One is the Planned Endorsement Advisory Committee that just met yesterday. We had a brief discussion about that. That might have some input into what our downtown recreation parks might look like. There is the Environmental Commission that will have input into what our open space and park plan would look like. And of course, there's the Recreation Activities Committee that would probably take a leading role in what that might look like. I think between those 3 groups, we should be able to provide, those groups should provide some input into what this plan would be. And then I would leave it to the township administration to figure out, who takes the lead, what the plan looks like, who's responsible those funds if they're needed. And so that to me sounds like the right way to approach this, because we have a lot of good ideas, and I think the town has a lot of needs, and these are all wonderful things that we should be pursuing, but they should be pursued in an orderly manner. I guess speaking only for myself.
So Dan, just quickly.
Yeah, go ahead.
The committee is specifically and solely put together, and it is not indefinite. It's put together to support the working with the state of New Jersey to justify, to come up with a vision statement and to come up and to justify the retention of us being able to keep our town center designations.
Right, and
So
from that, they're also
very
producing an
specific to that.
MSA, municipal
Self-assessment.
self-assessment, which is like a mini master plan. That's part of the output or what's produced by this committee. And so within the scope of that, we talked about a little bit yesterday, that there would be a parks component, probably a smaller one, but they would have some thing to say in that. But I think and you and I talked about this, I think the lion's share or the most of this work probably should be the realm of the Recreation Committee, because it's almost in the name. But I think there is maybe to address your point directly, I think there is some value to have input from that committee, whether or not ultimately the plan says that we follow what the committee says. And I'm sorry if I cut you off.
No, so we have a meeting that's coming up next week.
The 19th?
So we have a meeting on the 19th at 7:30. I think it's at 7:30. And we, as I've been coming here and mentioning to you as well, as the Rec Advisory Committee, we've been doing a lot of work looking into a lot of different things. So I think it does make sense that probably starts the lion's share of it, because we can butt it up also with some of the things that we've already been talking about on the Rec Advisory Committee, so that we're not being redundant. And any plans or updates to any of the facilities anyway has to go through the planning board for review. So I think, I'm just nervous with that one committee, because it's not going to be, it might not, it's there for the duration of this task. if it's going to take us longer to work with rec, then maybe it's a different, a different committee so that we're sure that we have the people, because I don't think this is going to be something that's going to be super quick.
Well, so what I would propose along those lines is we have a plan for the plan, right? And so we want to get that plan together, at least a good draft of that plan. I'm just going to make things up, maybe by the end of the year. And so if someone putting that plan together would say, these committees that we're going to provide input into it, give me your requirements by a certain date, and so we can factor that into this plan. So I see this as being a short, finite period, not an epic 3-year, 4-year project to create a plan for this stuff.
It's already been a 3-year.
It's already been.
Exactly. Well, that's my concern, right? We can talk about this forever. We need
That's
to sit
fine.
down and do
Okay,
it.
so we'll talk about it then. I don't know if you're coming on Tuesday night,
Well,
but
if-
I'd be happy to bring it
If
forward.
Deputy Mayor Clark will be there, I will not, but
I'll be
I'll
there.
coordinate with, okay.
I want to also add to that, though, the holistic, long-term view of what we do, right? So obviously, a master plan, whether it's the old one, obviously has an open space and a recreation component. A new one, which is obviously not going to be ready in 3 to 6 months. But also part of that is an open space and recreation plan. Again, it's presenting recommendations for consideration and guidance. It's not setting our policy, but that's also something from a broader holistic look, including multiple stakeholders in town, what we see as the vision for our parks and recreation, not just open space. So I think all that should feed into this as well.
Exactly, I completely agree. So the challenge is, how do we get all these committees working together when we all meet, we only do work twice a month? That's why it's 3 years or going on 4, 5, 6 years, whatever. It's hard, and so we probably need somebody to take ownership of it and set certain contours around how this comes together and come up with a framework. And then, and if by the end of the year is feasible, set a deadline for gathering input or requirements into this plan, and then take the next step. But I agree that the Environmental Commission will, and the Planning Board will obviously have input into this as well. And again, I see the administration sort of figuring out like how this comes together. That is all I had, unless there's any other comments on what I just talked about. All right. At this point, I will open it up to the public for any comments on or not on the agenda. Anything on your mind?
Jenny Eric's tapping to Sparta. First, regarding Resolution 9-7, how will the time limit be affected when there's discussion? Because you reference Board of Ed, which is true, they do have a 3-minute discussion, but they also do not respond. So when there's a dialogue back and forth, how is that going to be impacted on the?
And I think we addressed that before you arrived with somebody who had asked that same question. And speaking only for myself, the way that I would address that is the public comment period is meant for the public to provide input on debate. So we're debating a piece of legislation, a bill, an ordinance, a resolution, and the public says, I think you should do this, or my opinion is this. What's happened is it's morphed into a question and answer session, a press conference of sorts, an exchange, and that's healthy and fine until we're meeting till 11, 12 o'clock every night. And so I think I would like, personally, speaking only for myself, I'd like to take that back to let's keep the public comment period as a place where the public can come in on something that we're debating and say, I think you should do this for this reason, that's my opinion.
So you're not going to be responding.
I'm sorry?
So you will no longer be responding.
Well, the council can or may or may not respond, but I think your question is more, if you ask a question and I take 5 minutes to respond, I've just used up your 3 minutes. And I think that would be on the person asking the question to govern that. If
I don't know what you mean by that.
So if I say, Dan, what do you think about this? And I go on to talk about my Lego block collection, you might be like, I don't want to hear about your Lego block collection.
The speaker has to govern your time.
I would guess,
If they're asking a question and they want an answer, that's part of their time.
right?
Because it's supposed to be a comment section. It's
Right.
not supposed to be a debate.
Yep. However, to that point, if you need time as a member of the press to talk to council members, I think we should avail ourselves of you, if we choose to do so after the meeting, to have more detailed conversations. I think that's perfectly healthy as well, but I don't think the public comment period is meant for that type of exchange.
We'd also add the council also, after the 3 minutes, can share their thoughts too as needed.
Yep, that's a good point, too.
Regarding the discussion about Airbnbs, it's my understanding, and of course, Mr. Ryan is going to look into this, but rural residential zones, commercial properties are not permitted, which is the point with the sober living homes, as well as hotels being restricted as a permitted use in rural residential RR zones, which is 70% of the town, where, Chris, that's what you're talking about, I believe. Master Plan Committee, so is the determination of who approves the Master Plan Committee, is that not in ordinance somewhere, just like all the other committees are? It's spelled out in an ordinance.
I think the planning board determines the master plan subcommittee. The master plan is a planning board owned and led.
I understand that,
document.
but because there's, to your point, there's significant money attached to it, usually it's a town council decision.
Well, I think the council will appropriate the funds, but in
Do
terms
not
of,
have overriding authority on approving, wouldn't you have to approve, just like you approve who's on the planning board, is not, it doesn't rise to that? I'm asking.
that's probably a
I'm not-
legal
I
question.
don't believe so. I think the planning board owns that subcommittee, and the planning board, in its own processes, handles who's on that, and again, not the funding part of it, but the makeup and how broad it is.
Right, the practical aspect of it is that the council controls the purse strings, the
Got
purse
it. It's late.
strings as to the resources. So
Okay.
in that sense, the
So it doesn't have to do with the committee. Okay.
But I think the planning board can form the committee and govern how the committee meets. But if the committee wants to spend money, I think that comes here.
Right, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else from the public? Please state your name and address too. I forgot to say that before.
Vivian Perlmutter, 5 Morgan Drive. I think this should probably go to the planning board, but I just wanted to mention to you, there is a section of the North Village, right next to Starbucks, next to between the assisted living and Starbucks. This property is now an empty lot that is being proposed to be used for a fast food. And I would like you to, and I don't know who to go to, but I think it's time that we have a pocket park, a small park there. There is nowhere, after you buy your pizza or you buy your coffee or whatever else you buy, it would be nice to be able to sit down on a park bench, maybe have some tables there, very much like what we have at the library. We come out of the library, there's a table for us to sit and have something, a little time. You make it nice. And what you have now is a bunch of stores that sell a lot of food. And I was just thinking that you have that land, before you let anybody else build anything on it, please consider that it should be a place, a quiet spot. And the other thing is the assisted living doesn't have any place for these old folks or people that have any kind of handicap to go outside and just sit. Say they're in a wheelchair, wheel them out. There's no spot, there's no terrace, there's no patio, there's no park, there's no tree. I guess people feel assisted living, they're old. Put them in there, close it up. And my feeling is that prisoners get a chance, usually once a day, to have some fresh air. But not old people, screw them. And that's the way it is in this country. And you have to start thinking about old people's rights. And yes, the owner of that assisted living was permitted to build it any way they want. They don't have to, there's no regulation that they have to have an outdoor place for the people. But we as a town should be humane, and we should have a place for them, the people, to go to for part of the day so they could sit outside. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vivian.
Thank you.
I think I'll also, before you while you're here, the town, the deputy manager did have an update on a recommendation that actually you made at some point about the handrails. So if you want to comment on that.
That's wonderful. I saw they were working there.
You were the motivating person behind that, and the mayor had told us about it, and we went out, and sure enough, you're right, it wasn't very ergonomic to come across that bridge and climb those stairs, and those stairs were old and aged, and we decided to address the stairs, and we're gonna put better handrails.
Thank you so much.
So
Thank you. The population is aging, and even young people need to hold on to something.
Yep.
Thank you.
So feel free to bring a pocket knife and carve your name into the handrail for, yeah. Great, thank you.
Do those kinds of things.
I like traffic questions.
I'm gonna behave.
Name and address, please.
Beth Broderick, I'm still on North Shore. For the short term or the Airbnbs, for the HOAs like the Little Lake communities, do they have to follow town guidelines for their policies?
For when it comes to HOAs?
Yeah, so like if Lake Mohawk says we want a short-term rental policy and you have to be here for 3 months, do they have to be in line with like the Sparta and Byram policy if there is one?
Township
So-
rules would supersede
Yeah, yeah.
the
absolutely.
HOA rules.
Yeah, but township rules are the baseline. Everybody has to follow it regardless. However, if an HOA decides to crack that down more, so if an HOA decides to put additional restrictions on that, then those become also, they would apply to you guys. So not just the township, but on top of the township, HOA rule also would apply. So if we as a township said, I'm making this up, if we said, okay, it's minimum rental relation, or, minimum contract for renting property is 6 months, I'm making it up. And then Lake Mohawk came in and said, it's a year. For every resident in Sparta, it would be what the township says. But if Lake Mohawk then went in and made it even shorter, you as a resident of that private community would be held to their rules. So you would be held accountable to the whatever Lake Mohawk said as well.
Within the boundaries of Lake Mohawk, if Lake Mohawk said it's here, I'd have to follow a year because.
You know what? I'm
It's-
sorry.
it's
Can you
reversed.
just, I
No, it's-
Yeah, I'm
can't
just trying
hear
to
anything you're
understand.
You can do more, but you can't do less.
Okay, so
Why
Lake
would not?
Mohawk can make it more strict than Sparta or Byram. Because,
Yes.
okay, I'm
Yes.
just trying, I don't understand any of it. And I know that there's Airbnb in Sparta and in Lake Mohawk, because I've pulled up, there's one like on West Shore across the street from the house that I grew up in. And then there's a couple more like on the east side that say, hey, you can walk to the beach and we have beach passes and stuff like that. And I just don't understand. And I think Lake Mohawk has their own like X number of months
I
that
think
they're.
it's a month, is my understanding. I think that.
Thought it was 2 or 3, but I don't
Yeah.
like, I get so confused because they keep changing it, and if it doesn't involve a Pepsi truck on my street, I don't understand
But
it.
yeah, I mean, like anything, I think the rules are only good as they're enforced,
And
right?
they're not-
It's
nobody-
probably incumbent upon if in Lake Mohawk, if people are violating that, then the folks in Lake Mohawk who would be responsible need to say, listen, we have a 3-month period, but I've seen, 20 different people in the span of a month coming in and out of there. What are you doing about it? I think if you see that happening, I would encourage you to draw that attention to it, because, I mean, if we shouldn't pass rules that we don't intend to enforce.
Okay. Yeah, I just don't understand that aspect of it, but thank you.
Anyone else from the public? All right, that said, I think that concludes our agenda. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Really? What are we going to do with all this time? May I have a second, please?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All those, we are adjourned. Please, I'll be here all night. Try the fish.
You are good luck, John.
We did either.